Welcome to Aging Untold. When older adults date or marry much younger partners, it can bring joy and intimacy. Also, family suspicion, inheritance worries, and stigma. So how do adult children navigate their genuine concerns while honoring their parents' right to companionship? Sam, what's the delicate balance here?
It is a balancing act because that big age gap, everybody always immediately thinks it's a scam, and it may not be. Right. It may not be. Sometimes it is, but it may also not be true love either. And I think so many of our aged population, they're just wanting companionship. You know, you don't want to sit at home alone. You don't want to do things alone. You know, how many of us want to go out to a restaurant and eat alone? We don't. We want people to be with us. We're social creatures. And so sometimes kids jump in a protective way, and I see it a lot of times in our communities and like your assisted livings where two people will connect, even of the same age, and the kids are like, oh no, we can't have that. So it's not always just the age gap. Yeah, we've got a lot of younger dating, but it's kids are really resistant to their parents dating, whether their other parent has passed away or they're out of the picture because of a divorce. Kids are resistant to that, and the reality is we all deserve love and we all deserve companionship and happiness, regardless of those age gaps.
Do you think the children, I find a lot of children, they're fearful. They feel like I've already lost one parent, especially if that parent has passed, and I'm trying to hold on to this other, and what is this other person doing? I want to isolate this parent to myself. Or if they're both living, a lot of times they feel loyalty.
Oh yeah.
They feel a loyalty, and that's causing an issue with them. I think it makes a difference with the person if they have passed, if their parent has passed, what the condition was in that passing. Meaning, was it a long-term illness? It gives you a little bit more preparation to talk versus all of a sudden. And then many times spouses and all that, they want that other spouse. They don't want them to be alone. Yeah. Now, they don't want them to get married the next day after the funeral, but they want, after time and all that, they want them to go on with their life.
I think it all comes down to communication. And so get in the habit now of good, candid conversation, going back and forth, ongoing conversation. It'll make things easier in the future.
Right, and then just building up the courage to say, Mom, I want time with just you. Sometimes you just want to be with them and not have, the spouse there, having the courage to ask for that, and then staying in reality. Like, okay, what if they're divorced? And we need to acknowledge it's not always a death, but,
Sure.
What if they're divorced and they start dating again and you have discomfort? Well, I'd like to think that you might talk to a few people about your own discomfort before you go to your parents and say, what are you doing? Just kind of get support to settle into the emotion and the weirdness of it.
I think a lot of times the kids often very selfishly worry about my inheritance.
Yeah. And sometimes they should be worried.
Hold on. Yeah, and sometimes they should. But, Mom already had one foot on the other side, and I was looking at how many pennies I was going to cash in on. Yeah. And now she's got this young dude, and he's going to outlive her, and what's going to happen to my money? And I've heard that. And it's like, it's not your money to start with. Now, I get that we don't want her scammed, but if she's truly happy, if he's, 40 years old and they're living it up, who am I to judge?
I've seen the case where the younger new spouse dies before the parent did, and then funny enough, sometimes it's their former spouse that ends up being their caregiver. So it's really interesting family dynamics. But what I was meaning by sometimes they should be worried about inheritance is something rather serious, because what happens a lot of times is that people marry, and whichever one dies first, everything goes to this person's family. So there goes all the things you thought you were going to get from your mom, because it's now going to somebody else's family.
You see a whole different attitude on people when money gets involved. Oh, it can be real.
Yeah.
Right. So here's the couple I'm thinking about. They're dating, and they're talking about moving in together and not getting married. Right, but they have a problem with it. They don't want their children to know. They're self-conscious.
Oh,
they're embarrassed. You know, it's so funny.
That's so cute.
It is. But I've had a lot of couples that said, we can't live together. We have to get married because we want to be proper.
Yeah.
So what's your advice to the ones that said, I don't want to tell my children when that happens?
I just get them talking until they get clear for themselves, and then talk to their kids. Just put it all to the light of day, and so they can make a really informed, solid decision.
The light of day.
Yeah.
And one thing that you said, I think sometimes it's like, Mom, we want you to ourselves. Do you have to bring him?
Yeah.
And aren't we enough? Aren't the grandkids enough? Can you just focus on us instead of entertaining your boyfriend? So that's a real thing. So there's so much to talk about, and we're all about candid conversation and solutions. So be right back with us on Aging Untold.